Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Contact Exec Podcast. I've got a very special guest today, Puneet Raj, the CEO of Fieldwire. And of course, that is under the Hilti banner, of course, but he's done a lot in the industry. I'm here today with him. We actually met at ENR FutureTech. We shared a cocktail at the party, and so that was fantastic. Puneet, thanks for being here today. Glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It was a great first meeting. Always best to have the first meeting over a cocktail or so. And I'm glad to be at the podcast today. Yeah, I think we are at a very interesting phase in the construction industry where we have a lot of our customers who are interested in exploring the potential of AI. And if you remember, Robert, while we were at ENR FutureTech, we as Fieldwire announced the launch of Field Intelligence, which is our AI platform, which is specifically focused on improving job site productivity for self-performing contractors and subcontractors. And we have seen a huge wave of interest, not just in the US, but also in Europe, where we operate, from customers who are quite interested in exploring what does AI specifically mean for the job site. Because, when we think about it, most of the data in construction is actually created on the job site. But this is also where the least amount of data is actually captured or put to use. And we believe that this is where Field Intelligence and Fieldwire can really help construction customers in exploring the potential of that data.
Yeah, they say I've read studies or read statistics, I'll say, that 95% of the data that gets collected never gets used in construction.
Yeah.
That seems like a huge waste.
Yes.
But I want to kind of throw this at you. You did a survey that says that 72% of construction pros use AI, but it's mostly for things like, emails and summaries, things like that. I want to know, where did that number come from? Is that an internal Hilti thing? Where did that come from?
No, it actually comes from our customers. So we did a survey of around 170 construction companies spread across both the States and in Europe. And we spoke to a plethora of personas within those companies. And we asked them some very specific questions, which is, what exactly does AI mean for you? So what do you expect out of the use of AI in your company's processes? And more specifically, how is it that you are using AI at your work today? The data that came back was that a lot of our customers, 72% of those, are actively using AI, but primarily to summarize meeting information notes, or to help write emails in a more professional manner. Yeah, and this is a good start. It's great that the industry has taken a step towards this. But a lot of them also came out with expectations, and they had expectations that AI would help them save more than 2 to 3 hours per week when it comes to busy work, so that they could get back to their core work, which is building. And that was the insight which led us to start working on Field Intelligence with a specific focus on how do we make insights more actionable. There are a lot of construction tech startups which are come up, which are working in the space of on the space of AI in construction, and that is great for the industry. But we also see that a lot of them are working from the perspective of how do we extract more insights and deliver them to the persona who is in the office. And this is where Fieldwire gave it a twist. And we said that we want to make this actually actionable for somebody who's at the job site. We want to make it actionable for the supervisor who starts a day at 6 a.m. We want to tell them that these are the 5 things that you need to crack open today. And these are the best ways in which you can do so that they can get back to building and they do not wait to figure out stuff. And that was the insight that led to the development of Field Intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's great. You started that, great idea. The thought on that is, and I get to push back just a little on this, from being on the field side of the world, a lot of times you could have all the information you need right in front of you, but you don't necessarily have the authority to make the decision.
Yeah.
What do you think about AI's role in that idea of, decision making? Because again, it's one thing to have the data, but it's another thing to make a decision on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think in a nutshell, AI will not change decision-making processes in companies. But what it will do is it will empower every field user to make sure that they can push back on especially when it's specific to the task in front of you. And it just empowers people on the field to be able to say that, hey, listen, here is a clash. It is not just me telling you. I also have support now from AI, and here are some photos, and here is what the AI is telling us. You guys in the backend need to fix it. You guys in the design department need to fix this. So it actually empowers every single subcontractor, every single person on the field to also have their voice heard. And that's actually very important because we often hear from many of our customers that every word said by an experienced team member in the field is actually gold, because we have a problem of a missing generation in construction. We have a huge labor shortage in construction, but we also have a lot of experienced people who are fairly senior in their careers who simply know from the wealth of projects that they have worked on that some things have to be done in a certain way, or some things are bound to create a risk later on in the project. And now we are in a position to be able to capture that information, verify it with the use of AI, and provide such people with a voice that can be heard back in the office as well, but also create a knowledge base that is useful for future generation of workers and for the company in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I know from, being in the field, I always wondered, with some superintendents that were more senior than me, they had what they called a method to their madness, right? And that's where that all comes from. It's like, what is the method to this madness? Why are you doing it in this order? And it usually resulted in some sort of answer like, just watch, son, I'm gonna show you a thing or two. And it always then after it happened, then it made sense. Kind of to your point, it was like we have a lot of, I'll say, institutional knowledge with these field folks that we really need to capture, not necessarily to replace them, but they're going to want to be replaced, but it's also to give the younger generation a concept, an idea of why. I think that's
Absolutely.
important. But I got a feeling that you're going to get a little pushback because, a lot of times when you arm people with information, they tend to use it to their advantage mostly, and sometimes they want to try to skew it a little bit. I guess you kind of balance that when both sides have the same information and they can both evaluate. Right?
Exactly. I think the idea is to democratize the information and make sure that everyone is working off the same field truths, so to say. And that way, we also avoid conflicts in construction. And construction is known to be a litigious industry, right? So we also want to help avoid any kinds of litigation between parties. We just want to ensure that everyone gets along and make construction better and finish projects on time. Everyone with the same set of information, which is also independently verified with the use of a data, is such a great win for the entire industry.
Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, construction sometimes is conflict. It just at a lot of different levels, whether it's conflict with the earth or conflict with the elements or just conflict with other trades. It's just that you have to. Conflict resolution is a tool that everyone must learn when they're in this business. And speaking of kind of that conflict resolution, let's say there is a debate that's out there. They'll say it's not necessarily a conflict, but there is a debate about, do we keep the system close to ourselves? Do we keep that closed system, right? Or do we involve ourselves in an open ecosystem? And not my words. That's for me. That's ecosystem to me is tech speak. It's not something a construction guy uses very much.
Yeah.
But I'm learning as I go. So it's one of these things, having an open platform area that says, hey, welcome all comers. You're using this now, because you've got a lot of that right now. You've got a lot of folks using a lot of different tools, and maybe they've got a few of their favorites that they want to hang out with and they want to be involved with. But hopefully that doesn't interfere with your tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I hear this debate, I tend to think of how construction as an industry is also structured. We are structured primarily with general contractors and by trades, and each trade has its own specialization, and it specializes for a reason, because the application set and the processes are very specific to that trade. I think you can actually draw a similar argument even when it comes to construction softwares. Yeah, I think there are design softwares which are purpose-built for ensuring that architects and structural engineers can collaborate best and come out with the best possible design. There are field softwares which ensure that, field softwares such as Fieldwire, which ensure that you can execute very well on the field. And then, of course, there are ERPs which are very good at balancing out your general ledger. Yeah, and I think each has its place. Yeah, so we do not believe that there is a one size fit all. We believe pretty much that you need to be a part of this ecosystem. Though I know, Robert, you do not like the word, it is tech speak, but it is an ecosystem of it's an ecosystem of tools. And I think what's more important, especially in the age of AI, is that integrating between different sets of tools has actually become much easier. And AI also ensures that if you are a specialized software, you can actually deliver even higher value with that specialization while continuing to integrate with other elements of our customers' technology stack. And hence, that's our belief that we need to have an open ecosystem. And that's also why you would see that on Fieldwire, we have actually driven a lot of integrations with both, the bigger softwares out there, but also many small upcoming startups who we see are adding value in a very specific use case for our customers. And we see that it makes full sense to have an integration with such companies as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And, not to say that I built my first a few AI agents just recently. So I am fully involved in the whole, I can't say that I'm outside of the technology world anymore. I can't say that I'm just a good old carpenter anymore because I have been diving fairly deep here lately. And I do agree with you. The age of AI has brought upon the ability of someone like me, field user, probably level, that kind of thing, to create maybe an agent or maybe, streamline a workflow just with the tools that I have right now, right? And as it advances and as it incorporates into a business system model, it's no longer going to be a bolt-on piece, is it? It's the business and AI, it's AI in the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I take you back to that example that we got from the survey, that a lot of our customers have started using AI as a bolt-on. You read emails, you use AI to just summarize all your emails. So it's a bolt-on. But as people get more comfortable with AI, a lot of these processes would simply be reworked around, how do I avoid repetitive work? And how do I, as a user, or how do I, as a craftsman, spend more time on the stuff that's of value to me? So, for instance, a daily report that a supervisor has to fill in at the end of the day, it's part and parcel of your daily job. Yeah, but rather than fill out a long, lengthy form, either on pen and paper or on, a digital form, most probably would go into an audio or a video walkthrough with AI extracting information on the tasks that you have done throughout the day. So that's an AI augmented workflow. So it would no longer be a bolt-on, but it will kind of mesh very smoothly with your processes throughout the day. And I think that's also critical for the success of AI in construction. When any construction company implements any AI augmented workflow, it should not result in the ideal world, a new process for a ton of people on the field to learn. It should just be a part and parcel of their normal process, which now suddenly, thanks to the use of AI agents, becomes much more faster or much more easier to accomplish. Yeah, and that is what is also going to lead to ensuring that people use AI or AI-oriented tools on the field. We do not want to impose any new cognitive load on the craftsmen. They already have a difficult task, and they are very good at what they do. We do not need them to learn new processes right now, and that should be the last thing that anyone expects from AI in construction.
You're spot on there, Puneet, because I talk to supervisors, I have project managers, supervisors, foremen. The last thing they want, and they always tell me this, I don't need another tool in my toolbox. They're asking me things like, is there anything that we can get that just does this for us? Right. I think that daily report thing at that end of the day report, the time tracking thing, all those different features, they want it off their plate in some way, shape, or form, because it does take away from the actual job of getting something built. Right.
Yeah. I just want to add one more point to this, Robert. I think also AI in construction is very specific to construction because construction as an industry has its own unique set of issues and has its own unique set of workflows. Also, it differs by trade. And that's also the reason why, very generic AI, my belief is that it would find it very tough to actually succeed in construction versus an AI model or a set of AI tools which have been trained on construction specific data. And you can take the example of a daily report. I was just having a chat with a few folks yesterday who were telling me that a daily report is also required in a factory. But the way in which the daily report would be constructed when you are a supervisor on a factory floor is quite dramatically different from how it would be constructed if you're a supervisor in construction, right? And the kind of problems and the issues you need to highlight, the kind of data points that you would need to look at are so dramatically different that a standard model would possibly get 65% of the way, but would not be good enough to actually submit it to a customer or your client. And hence you need a model or you need a tool that's purpose built for that construction workflow. And that, I think, is also the beauty of construction. And companies that will succeed or tools that will succeed are purpose built for construction.
Well, and you obviously open up. I mean, construction, the reason why tech is so involved is because they see the possibilities. There are challenges to overcome. To your point about the manufacturing facility is a controlled environment, right?
Yeah.
You've got machines in there, you've got humans in there, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got probably all the IoT tools that you would need to measure, monitor, do all those things. Construction sites don't have that yet. I'm sure most of it's on the way. Hilti tools already have IoT devices that are in them. You and I spoke about this. Already have that technology. Information that you can garner just from the tool is extremely valid when it comes to just a daily report of kind of what went on and why something happened, or a potential reason why something happened on a job site. Because as we know, especially with the dawn of AI and the need for infrastructure builds to move quickly, the need for AI data centers to be able to move quickly, we need answers of like what's holding us back, where are our bottlenecks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are many ways to extract data from the field, and use it to our advantage. One is, of course, everything around visual data, through photos or 360 videos or the sort. But there's also, just a breadth of information available when it comes to, tasks and the way in which tasks are managed on a construction site or a job site. Of course, IoT information from tools, which Hilti, by the way, offers with a software called OnTrack, is also another critical portion. But once again, these are all specific pieces of information which are available in construction. And we intend that, field intelligence is a layer that can orchestrate data across the entire job site and provide that to our customers in a easy-to-use manner.
Yeah, we just got to talk briefly at FutureTech, but it was filled with a lot of good information that I've tried to kind of remember. And I think we touched briefly on, we talked about the IoT devices and OnTrack, which was your baby at Hilti. And then, but we also talked about a little bit about how AI is going to be very local. And I think that may have been more your point, is it gets very, very specific to the company that it's working with. I look at it as, and I don't want your take on it, but I look at it as almost like you're training a new engineer or a new project engineer or a new project manager at some point. You're actually training them for the locality that they're actually in and not just some generalized construction model, right? You really are. You really are. It's going to be very, very specific to their location and their environment.
Exactly, because I think 60 to 70% of the learnings could be circulated amongst companies because they could be common learnings. Every company has a process that is so specific to itself, and you would want any new engineer that you hire or any worker that you hire to be super specialized on that process. So, and AI, you should just consider it as yet another worker or an augmentation of your existing workers. So they need to be super specialized on your specific processes, on the types of projects that you work on, and the tribal knowledge that your teams have built up over the course of the years. So it is super specific. So we don't view AI as, there'll be one construction knowledge base that it can train on, and everyone in the world then has to implement the same workflows. I don't think that's going to work in construction. Simply because every construction project is also extremely unique. There's a reason why still a lot of construction work happens on the job site and it doesn't happen in a factory.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole with
Yeah,
that one
exactly.
right there. But I do want to talk to you because, you talk about the open ecosystem. You guys do some work with, Track 3D, and you've got pictures now. Is it video or is it pictures or is it video for Fieldwire? What's going on in Fieldwire? You guys rolled that out at ENR FutureTech.
Yeah. So, historically, customers have been able to upload pictures or 360 videos in Fieldwire. Of course, we also have a lot of companies doing visual reality capture these days with open spaces of the world or drone deploys, track threes of the world. Yeah, we are also building an integration with some of them. It's all different means to capture job site information. And I think the key is going to be in how can someone extract information from what has been captured and how to marry it seamlessly into a workflow that a customer is already utilizing. For instance, customers use Fieldwire quite intensively to break down their tasks and then allocate tasks between different workers. Also on the QA QC process, and that's where we see over 3 to 4 million photographs being uploaded on Fieldwire each month. Just play on the QA QC processes itself. And now the key challenge for us is to deliver further value to the customers, to highlight issues even before they occur, to be able to also tell them that similar issues have occurred in similar projects of yours. So maybe this is something that you need to watch out for and highlight risks even before they surface in reality. And this is the kind of value that purpose-built or purpose-trained AI on customers' data can actually provide for certain customers.
Yeah. So is that not giving any state secrets away or anything? Is that kind of your focus, to being able to take that visual information and start to deliver some predictability into the...
So when it comes to field intelligence, we tend to frame it as a customer should be able to ask field intelligence anything. Field intelligence should be able to build out the standard stuff for our customers so that they get away from busy work, but they get back to building. And field intelligence should be able to deliver reports and surface risks even before they occur so that our customers are able to finish projects on time. So any piece of information that is on the field that helps in this is of course, interest as a feeder into field intelligence. And then our field intelligence is able to analyze this and help our customers finish projects on time, which is the purpose of Fieldwire in the first place.
Right. I want to kind of get back a little bit to the open ecosystem kind of thing, because I feel like, and I want to get your perspective on it. When we talk about an open ecosystem having kind of, folks bring in their ideas and they're different, connected to different projects, all like that very, very much right now. But as AI develops and it gets very specific to its location and things like that, do you see it maybe trying to close those doors a little bit, saying, hey, we're getting maybe out of our skis in this information isn't valid? Does that come into play for you guys? Does that resonate?
Yeah, I think it's I'll answer this in a different spin. I think it's very important that any output of AI has a relevant context to it. Otherwise, it just tends to be noise and it's not really helpful information. Yeah. And if you think about it from the perspective of a customer, especially a field user, because Fieldwire is very field focused, a field user typically has an issue in front of them, which they need help in resolving. So it is very specific to the task at hand. It's very specific to the project you are on, to the location of the project that you are on. So any help rendered by AI has also to be specific to that context. Otherwise, it's just noise. And what we want to avoid in any system is more noise given to the field user, because that's the last thing they need on top of everything else that they have to teach. So from that perspective, we view Fieldwire as a field-first platform. So there are certain pieces of certain integrations that are very helpful to us, wherein we can utilize that data in field intelligence to be able to deliver value. And there are other integrations that we would do because it helps our customers have seamless information flow, but wouldn't necessarily be data that we would train field intelligence on because it's outside of the boundary of the field. We view ourselves as being a part of the build phase of construction, and that is where we would be most helpful for our customers.
A little curveball here, just because I just thought of it in my head, but there's a lot of talk about data ownership when it comes to this stuff. And I want to kind of get your take on it, because you're in a position where you collect a lot of data, but is it really your data, or is it just data you've collected? Tell me what your thoughts are.
It's super clear for us. There is only one owner of the data, and that's the customer. And we are also super clear that with field intelligence, we want to build the most trusted AI for construction. So we will never train against that data until the customer has given us explicit permission. We also have implemented row-level security, which means that if a field user asks field intelligence a question about that task, field intelligence only goes and searches for information on that task, on that project. It's actually that restricted. So it doesn't give you, as a field user, information about a different project. So it's very
back
restricted.
to local.
Exactly. Because it has to be trusted. And trust is a very hard thing to earn in construction. And we want to ensure that field intelligence becomes one of the most trusted AI in construction.
Your thoughts on kind of end of the job ownership of data? Who owns it? Obviously, your GCs or your subspecialty contractors now have the data. Does that data then belong to the owner of the building or the owner of the asset as part of the asset, or how about that?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think the same data can have multiple perspectives. Yeah, I think as the owner of the project, you definitely need the closeout data of the project as to how was the project finally completed versus the specifications, what were the materials used, what were the submittals, etc. And that's information that belongs to the owner. But there is also a lot of task and process level information which was created by subcontractors or by the general contractors, the to's and fro's of the RFIs and the submittal workflows or change order workflows that were created by the GCs and the subs. And that is of useful information to the GCs and the subs. For the GCs, it could be useful information to figure out which subs do I continue to work with. Was this sub actually a good enough sub for this type of project? And that's information that belongs to the GCs. Similarly, for the subs, it's information about how well did their processes work on field and which worker did what. Yeah, I think so. The same piece of data can have different perspectives, and I think every person owns their perspective.
But I also see that at the end of a job, and that one of the greatest unicorns I'll say on any job is the as-built. Right? Yeah. Everybody says there's an as-built somewhere, but it's really not as-built, or it's just a red line drawing. I think AI has serious potential to actually become the true as-built of the job, right? But then, who owns, all that portion of the as-built, and how do you pass it on?
Yeah, I think that's still an interesting problem for us to solve in the industry, because I don't think any AI has cracked that exact separation of data yet.
Yeah.
As to what is purely the owner's portion of the data of the as-built and what was the GC's portion and the subs portion. I think that's an interesting problem for a lot of people to solve. So, my message out there is if you are a founder or a would-be founder looking for a cool idea, I think this is a very cool idea to solve. We're all in the search for a solution.
Well, yeah, the whole topic of, because it gets into like data governance. Like, again, how would you separate out which files? Would it be a specific file type, or and how you would name it? It, like, for me, it just kind of it goes way out and kind of the nebulous of ideas. But there is a very, very large conversation about this kind of going around.
Yeah,
especially in end of project kind of thing, like who owns the data.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's a debate. That's a debate that continues to be had, because you could also extend beyond information that's present in a job site management software such as Fieldwire, but also information exchange on emails, for instance. So who owns that? But obviously, the email is, if you send an email, if you're an owner and if you send an email to us or a GC, a copy of that email also resides with the GC. So it's kind of tough to decipher if there is absolute ownership, which is why my perspective is that there are different perspectives on the same piece of data. And I think the owner, the GC, and the sub all own their perspectives. I think might be a pragmatic way out, but the debate rages on.
Yeah. Well, this is one of those things where you can go down just this massive rabbit hole of information trying to parse out who does what, when and where. Like I said, I think that's the thing that technology realizes about construction. It is its own crazy little animal that needs, to be solved in a way. And up until this point, technology has solved a few, I'll say, edge case or solved a few issues, but they have yet to kind of figure out how to get them all to kind of talk together so that we're getting to what you were talking about earlier, better decision making based upon a kind of democratized knowledge of what's really going on in that project.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes construction such a unique industry and so much fun to work in, quite frankly, Robert. This is the world's greatest sector, after all. It's also the world's biggest sector, 15 trillion of GDP worldwide. And there are just so many challenges to be
14%.
solved in construction. So I think we in construction also owe it to attract smart people into the industry just because of the challenges that we have yet to solve in this space. It's a super fun
Was
industry.
that one of your decisions? Yeah. Well, so you were with Unilever and Amazon. Was that one of the reasons you came over to construction? You decided you wanted to be in this crazy business?
Yeah, I was quoted by the Hilti group for a period of a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I actually knew nothing about construction. I was working on Amazon, I was running a part of the Kindle business at that point of time. So that was electronic readers, literally. Yeah, and my background before that was I had spent several years in Unilever, primarily in sales and marketing, and working on the sales tech stack of Unilever as well. And when I heard about Hilti, the industry seemed very intriguing, and but I knew nothing about construction. So when I finally joined Hilti, I told them, "See, listen, I know Jack. I need to spend a couple of years just learning about this industry. So can I go and work on a construction site?" And they actually made that happen. So I got a chance to go to Bosnia and take part in building a house from scratch.
I am
And
so proud of you.
this was a
Yeah.
dramatically different endeavor. On day one, the supervisor literally handed me a shovel and he
Yeah.
said, "Let's dig." Because we
Let's
had to
dig.
literally dig a foundation with shovels.
Love it.
Safety and processes were, let's just say construction in Bosnia is in a different world in itself. So it was a
Yeah.
timber, it was a house made of wood, so it was timber construction. So we worked a lot on just digging up the foundation and figuring out the external structure, then doing the insulation and doing the roofing. And it was a lot of fun from, I think, 5 a.m. in the morning till 7 in the evening. And later on in the evening, we used to have some roast chicken and some hearty soup on the side of the hill that we were building the house at. It was the best intro into construction, to just go out and build and be one of the workers on site. And that also taught me a lot of the processes in construction, which is how much they could be improved, because there was just a lot of stuff, a lot of time we were just waiting around for stuff.
Yeah.
Or stuff was not where it was supposed to be, or we had to figure out what the next step in the plan was. And, I could clearly see that, scaling up on a bigger construction site as well. And this was a small
Yeah.
house that we were building, but in a data
Yeah.
center project, the
I
delays
think-
on such a scale can be massive, right?
Yes, all of that scales, every bit of it, right? It's the waiting around. You're waiting around on a plumber, or you're waiting around on an electrician, or you can't get that done because you don't have these materials, or this has to be dug before you can put this in, and this dirt over here is in the way so we're going to have to move that, or this machine over here is in the way, we need to move that. I think that is the best education. I wish, and this is my wish for the industry, which anybody that's entering would enter the way that you did. I don't care if you're working in the office or not. You need to understand, if you're going to be in construction, you need to understand what it is that construction does. And I don't care if you're going to work for an electrical contractor, you need to go out with the Sparky and you need to hang out and you need to go, oh, okay, yeah, there's depth behind that wire and there's depth behind that panel. And every day is, there's a precision involved. There's a thought process involved, and you've got to be, you just can't be Johnny off the street and think that you're just going to become, an electrician.
Exactly. And when you do that, you develop so much of respect for the craftsman in construction. And that's actually super important, because even if I look at, Team Fieldwire, while we are a construction tech company, a huge amount of this team actually comes from the world of construction. So we actively hire PMs, APMs from construction, people who have been in the field, who have understood the frustration, who now want to scale their impact and help other construction companies get better at processes. That's primarily who Fieldwire is. We tend to think of ourselves as a team of construction enthusiasts who also love technology, and we are here to make construction better. And That's actually one of the key hiring criteria that we have for Fieldwire, that you must have an absolute passion for this industry.
Yeah, and I love that too because again, I've always respected Hilti as a company. I'm respecting Fieldwire as its own entity as well. But I think that is the most poignant information that folks can have right now, especially kids that are out there that are looking for a job, wanting to know, like, you say there's a career in construction. I don't necessarily want to be, pounding nails the rest of my life. I remember when I was 22 years old, I was like, I'm never going to be pounding nails the rest of my life. And the truth is, it's an opportunity to step into a place like Fieldwire, right? You get experience out in the field, but maybe you've got a passion for, programming, a passion for how workflows fit together, becoming a solutions engineer, those types of things. Man, it is a stepping stone. It doesn't have to be your permanent place of work unless you like it that way. But it's such a great opportunity. I think it served me well over the years. And I'm 35 years into this business and started out at the very bottom, but I didn't stay there. I think that's the misnomer that maybe a lot of kids have these days about construction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that we as an industry need to do much better, which is, make sure that we also market and talk about the industry and the variety of opportunities that exist. And that's actually a significant passion of mine, to also ensure that we are attracting the next generation into this great industry. And we need people who are mission oriented, and we need people who can roll up their sleeves and learn the craft. But also, at the same point of time, we need people who can then scale and solve problems across different companies. And construction tech, in the way the entire construction tech space has come up in the last 7 or 8 years, has provided that opportunity. There are over, I think, 3,000 startups in construction tech worldwide right now. A huge amount in the US, of course, but we also see, a hub in UK, a hub in France, a hub in Singapore, in Asia. And this is a truly global industry. And we need the best and brightest to join the sector.
Yeah, we certainly do. Certainly do. Well, your story is fascinating, Puneet. I got to be honest, man. I wanted to know a bit more about your background, but I love that idea that you're out there digging in the dirt with the rest of us. I love it. I think it's great, man. I do. I wish every CEO I spoke with had the same story. So yeah,
it certainly grounds you, because once you've done that, you know that you can't speak bullshit to your craftsmen. They can smell it out.
Yeah, they know you. They know you right off. No, I totally get it. So yeah, that's a fantastic story. Time flies when you're having fun, Puneet, and I really do appreciate you coming on today, sharing your story, sharing the news about Fieldwire and all the improvements in our conversation. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Robert. The next time we meet, the next cocktail is also on me.
All right, I love that. I've never turned down a good whiskey. All right. Well, until next time, folks. It was Puneet Raj from Fieldwire. Man, what a story. The guy is just super smart and it just a pleasure to be with. Until next time, we'll see y'all on the Contact Exec.
Thank you.